Hard Knock Media presents Occupy Me, a new science fiction thriller.
Oh, man, the world's gonna end, isn't it?
Yes, but I would also like to say, the world ending is not the end of the world. Let me rephrase.
Occupy Me is a new science fiction audio drama involving an alien invasion, psychic body snatching, and bizarre love triangles.
Christina, for real, only if it's an emergency.
Roxanne, when is it not an emergency?
To listen and subscribe to Occupy Me, find us at iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts, and head to thenerdsofcolor.org for the latest updates.
It's time for Who Watch, Time and Relative Blackness in Space.
Hi everyone, it's Connie and Robin coming to you live from the Time Vortex. Today we're discussing episode 1 and 2 of Doctor Who Season 12, Spyfall Parts 1 and 2. In this episode, the Doctor has had an upgrade. Yaz and Ryan look great in suits, and oh my, the Master.
Yeah, so, as a reminder for our friendly listeners that Bayana has
she has excused herself
ship.
from the narrative, from the Tarbis narrative.
From this narrative, because the BGC content calendar and our own individual content calendars be wildin'. So, she's stepping off for this one, but we will include her thoughts as we get them, and we'll find a way to work back in.
Now we've been watching together, or we will probably be watching the episodes together. Hilariously enough, when the episode, when we were deciding whether or not we're going to watch it, because thank God the BBC has finally got it together, BBC America, and so the East Coast West Coast times are the same. And she's like, oh, we could just watch it now. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh. I was not excited to watch Doctor Who again. She was excited to watch Doctor Who again, but she's not excited to podcast, and I'm excited to podcast. Not that she's not excited to podcast, but she's just like, that's
so funny. Yeah, it's something she was like, she had said that she wasn't going to do, so she didn't have to worry about it. Because I had the same feeling. I was just like, do I feel like watching this on time? And I literally tweeted all right, y'all tell me if I really need to watch this episode right now. It was 7:58. I was like, should I? And people were like, no, you definitely need to watch it. I was like, fine, because I was just being, I can't even say I was being lazy, because the remote was right there. I didn't have to get up. I just literally had to press 3 buttons and watch it. And so then I did that, and I was like, fine. And then at the end, I was just like, okay, fine, all right.
I felt inspired by Doctor Who, and we've talked about this a little bit too. It's on the Doctor Who hiatus, we were like, well, let's do the Blue Ballot Box series, so we're doing something. And we thought that it would not be that much. It's one episode a month. It's no big deal.
It was one a month.
Whatever.
One a month.
But it wore me down.
Lies.
It really did. It wore me down.
Same.
And
Same.
I was just not right,
especially those last
were
few.
Just oh my God. And I just was not that excited about Doctor Who. And I think also fandom in general has worn me down. And Star Wars just came out.
The discourse.
J.K. Rowling wild, discourse. I was like, I don't have nothing to give. Yeah.
I don't have, my battery's empty.
But then they were like, Sasha. And I was
Sasha
like,
Dewan. Sasha Dewan really just came out the gate hi.
Do you think
I am your master?
Do you think that someone listens to Tarbis and was like, you know what would wreck Robin? You know how we can get her?
Because there are certain parts There were certain parts of episode 1 where I was just like, oh man, this is really dark. It got a little spooky. I was like, Robin's not gonna like this. I might be recording this by myself. And then they like the twist happened, and I was just like, oh, even we're out here. Okay.
I'm super excited. Just to start off, Stephen Fry is in this episode, and I wasn't really paying it. Again, I'm like over the discourse, right? So I hadn't been really paying attention.
Yeah, right.
I didn't know. I didn't know that Sacha Dhawan was going to be in this episode. I don't even think I knew he was going to be in this season.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Yeah,
it wasn't announced. I was reading somewhere that they said that they didn't even announce him as O.
And like
he wasn't listed.
I don't know if they, in like the trailer, because I only watched the trailer like once. I don't even remember what was in the trailer for the season. I don't think I remember seeing him.
Same, me neither.
I feel like I would have remembered seeing him.
He wasn't in it.
Because his face is very memorable.
I don't think he was in it.
But I was excited because of Stephen Fry, who is very much my shit. And then we had already some Doctor Who discourse because of what, I forgot his name already. Yes.
Lenny Henry?
What he had said, which, he had made points. Can we just agree?
He was right.
That he made points.
Facts only.
So, yeah, with Lenny Henry. And I don't even know if I knew that he was going to be in the first episode. So,
I don't think I did either. Like, I knew, I was like, clearly he's going to be in it. And I don't, I'm sure you know who he is more than I do.
Not before the blow up.
Okay. But
comedian,
he's also like a British comedian. There's just like all they hire is British comedians and they're always like doing serious things. I'm just interesting. But so I knew he was clearly going to be in it, but I also wasn't expecting him to be in this first episode. But I guess they're also like being very like, they're doling out these announcements because a lot of the things that they did announce have already happened. Like, they were like, Stephen Fry is going to be in it, Lenny Henry's going to be in it, and then it's already happened. So they might just be taking their time with, like, announcing who's doing what. So, yeah, The Master. What were your thoughts? So, because this is 2 episodes, and we don't want to be 2 hours, we're going to try our best to not take forever. We're gonna kind of talk about the episodes like as
holistically,
whole, just like more holistically rather than like how we usually do it. But so the twist, because I'll be honest, I have no idea what the plot of these 2 episodes are.
I mean, I saw that. I got from
like,
your notes
with regard,
but I like no idea.
Yeah. I'm just like, the Master's here. He was just wrecking stuff. And then there are these light things, but I don't know how it relates to what Barton wanted.
So, do you want me to do a quick summary, or do you want to? Okay, because also what we're talking about,
let's do that.
What I'm saying that the writers were like, they listened to Tarbis and they were like, this is going to be extremely Robin shit. We open with dead drops.
Oh no! As soon as there was,
and I was like, what
yes, I was said that to myself.
And she was like, that was a dead drop, and I was like, it was, wasn't it?
I also had that thought. I was just like, wait, Robin. First, I was like, Robin's gonna like this because dead drops, and then it got spooky later. I was just like, oh, Robin might not like this anymore. And then Sasha came out and was just like, oh, good, no, we're good.
He's here.
Robin remained in the chat.
Robin kicks door down into the chat. We open with like these 3 intelligence professionals from 3 different countries getting assassinated through like woo alien circumstances, and then the fam gets picked up by MI6. MI6 is headed by Stephen fucking Fry, who they then kill. How dare they? So Stephen Fry calls in the doctor, is like talking to Graham as if he's the doctor, in which the doctor has to let him know, actually, boop boop, I am who I says I am, or who I says I is. And we find out that there are military officials, are intelligence officers all over the world from different countries and different agencies getting picked off by mysterious circumstances, but they're not getting killed, they're getting their DNA rewritten.
Right.
Yeah, so they're getting put in the coma and they're like getting their DNA rewritten. The doctor goes to find this MI6, which MI6 is basically the British CIA. MI6's extraterrestrial guy, his name is O, and they go off to figure out who are these people, or who is changing the DNA of these intelligence officials, and they think that it is the leader of this tech conglomerate, think Google, Apple, Amazon, called Vor, and so his name is Daniel Barton, the head leader of it, and so they split up. The doctor and Graham go to O in the Australian outback. Yaz and Ryan go to talk to Daniel Barton. They figure out that Daniel Barton is his DNA is partially rewritten. He obviously is human because they can like trace his background, and he's been around, and like he's not like an implant here from, you know, he's got a long ledger, which is how you know that a spy is like for real. And then we find out that what Daniel Barton is doing is he's teamed up with O, who is the master, and this alien race, the Kasavans. And they're all working together. The Kasavans want to take, like, basically invade Earth, and they're coming from a different universe, it seems like. So we got a multiverse situation going on, which is exciting.
Yeah, it was like spies through time?
Through time and the multiverse.
I thought they were undoing the multiverse part because it was through time and not the multiverse.
Oh, I thought they were still trying to take over their universe. They were just trying to take it over. They're trying to infiltrate in all areas. I don't know. Yeah, that part I don't get. But so anyway, so Daniel Barton comes up with the technology that allows them to basically use human beings as computer processors. So we become the modems to connect and download. You know what I mean?
Right. Is that why they have the little follicle world things? Or we don't know?
I don't really know. I think I got Matrix vibes from from that area where they were holding, where Yaz and the doctor and Ada Lovelace end up, and the master at one point. But if you remember the Matrix, basically humans are batteries, incubators, and they are projected into this like mainframe. Fuck. Right. Woo. Now I'm back in S.H.I.E.L.D. Into this framework. But so that was the plan. The plan was that Daniel Barton would be able, like, the Kasavans are coming, and he's going to get to hold on to power and his humanity by allowing them. He's the Peter Pettigrew of the situation. I'm going to give them the tools to do this takeover, and by doing so, by joining them, I get to remain in control of my body, and I get to have some like sense of leadership. They're so dumb. I'm just here for chaos. The master is literally Loki. In this, in the Doctor Who world, but like now especially with Sasha's face, he's definitely Loki. You know what I mean? Just like he's much more. I mean, I think Missy was this too. Like much more charismatic than John Sims' master was. I was not interested in John Sims' master.
Me neither.
Missy had a lot more like unhinged crazy that was like, or hinged crazy, I think. It's not unhinged. She was
Master Sims is unhinged.
Sims was unhinged. Missy was hinged. Crazy with like flawless outfits.
Yeah. And
Sasha
now we're back to unhinged.
Back to unhinged, but like more chaos and the face. Like, you know, like it works. So they're all working different angles. Yeah. Basically, Barton's angle is the Kasavans are coming, and I want to have some measure of control when it inevitably happens.
Does he survive this episode? Because I blinked and don't realize I didn't know if he got or not. Because he deserved to get got.
I don't know. I think he got away. He called for an extraction team, and I think that's the last we saw of him.
Okay. So then he can also return.
Yeah, he can return later on, I believe. Then the Master's whole plan is to like basically get the Doctor, kill the humans, and then revel in the chaos. And the Kasabians' plan is to be able to infiltrate this universe, use our bodies as basically the host, and take over. So that's the plan. And then the Doctor and the fam spoil that plan by the Doctor picking up 2 new companions, going through time, and helping the fam in current day survive because they get, they're on their own.
Right.
But also going and making, doing doctory things to make sure that the plan unravels in the way that it does.
Yeah.
Is that a good synopsis?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That helped.
Okay. I don't want to go too long, but
no, that was good.
Yeah.
So the Master is
we
back.
find out at the end of part 1 that the Master is the Master, but I felt like by the first half, when we get to meet him, I'm like, okay, that's O. O is hot. I'm a fan. And then when the Doctor asks if he wants to go on the TARDIS to go find Daniel Barton, I'm like, oh, he's the bad guy. That's what I was like, he's the bad. I didn't think he was the Master.
Right.
But I was like, oh, he's the bad guy. Because the way he was like, yes, I definitely want to get on the TARDIS. And then his reaction once he got on the TARDIS, I was like, I had Adam vibes from season 1. Yeah.
I know who that is, but it was funny in the Slack. I think you said that, and then Amani posted a picture of who that was, and I was like, that is not even what I was picturing.
Well, because me and Amani got into a fight, we were saying the same thing, but Amani said he had Adam face, and I was like, whoa, how dare.
That's wrong.
He got Sasha face. Which is already a problem. Just so you guys know, too, by the way, for the rest of the season, or the rest of the Sasha's run as the Master, I got so distracted. I had to rewatch whole chunks of part 2.
Oh, so in part 1, I had the Chris Evans sweater problem. Oh. I was just like, I know everyone say he's the bad guy. He's probably the bad guy. But look at him.
Look at him.
He was so puffy. And I was distracted, and I was like, the veil over it, and I was just like, no, I know you guys are probably right, but look at him. And not even just in attractiveness, it was just
sometimes makes points.
Right,
That's
he was nice. He was so nice, and he was a fan of the Doctor, and he was excited to be on the TARDIS, and I see it. I know that that was an evil glimmer in his eye when he was so excited to get on the TARDIS, but also he was just excited to be on the TARDIS. And so I had Chris Evans sweater problems from Knives Out, and I was just like, listen, you don't cast someone like this and they're not the bad guy, but also, what if he's not the bad guy? And then he was the bad guy. But then he was really the big bad guy.
He was the big, well, that was the thing too.
The biggest bad guy.
I'm fine with him being the bad guy of the episode. But then I was like, oh, but you're going to make him a serial killer, sociopathic murderer with that face, though.
Yeah.
And I don't watch You, because you know me, I don't do scary shit at all. No. But I have been the discourse.
The discourse,
and
of course.
Even, what's his name? Paige Bagley, the guy who plays...
Penn. Yeah.
Paige. Even he is on Twitter being y'all are wild, and I know it's because I'm aesthetically pleasing to you, but I'm also playing a murderer, so calm down, keep it in your pants.
Just I already know that the show is about the lengths you'll go for an evil white dude.
Right. And I'm like,
and it's just,
I get that with your face, but with Sasha's face,
it's really annoying because
ready to throw it all away.
As
it all.
As you mentioned, Rise of Skywalker just dropped. And I guess spoiler alert, but it's not really a spoiler alert in the sense that people really like Adam Driver and
Ben Demption.
And Ben Demption and even just the idea of it is something people have wanted a really long time. And I'm just no, he is a murderer. He killed Han Solo.
Killed his father.
and like assisted in the genocide
reason.
and assisted in the genocide of thousands of like millions on like several planets. So no Bendemption, but the Master as Sasha. I mean,
Nicole,
Missy, listen, guys, Missy was having a breakthrough. We don't know at which point.
Right, we don't know which
the Master comes after. We don't know what place in the Master's timeline he is. So it could be like he just needs, the big reveal sort of is that the Master returns at some point. We still don't know how, and made it to Gallifrey and has learned some very disturbing information about the Time Lords and got so mad that he like raised the entire planet to the ground.
Right, so he's going through some things.
Right.
It might have snapped all the good work, but that doesn't mean you can't piece it back together.
Right. You could just like reel it back, just like they're going to have a heart-to-heart, a hearts-to-hearts.
2 steps forward, 1 step back, or what is that,
One of those. Yeah.
Right.
And so like, let's just hope that no Raylos or Bendemption fans are listening to this podcast and my hypocrisy.
So Nicole, aka Black TARDIS, said this tweet about like the same thing, and she was like, "Listen, I'm gonna just sit here in my hypocrisy." But I've decided that when he's on the screen, he's the Master, and that's bad. But all the extras and behind the scenes, and Sasha's gonna take you through the Master's timeline. Like
Listen, I was on his Instagram the night that episode aired,
and guys, I don't know if you know this about me. Mental health, big deal. He's raising money for mental health as he's playing the Master who deals with, I'm not that kind, like, that's not my struggle. Murderous raging is not something I personally deal with.
And it's also not the campaign, just to be clear.
No, I'm just saying,
Yeah. He's a mental health advocate. He, has invisible illnesses that he talks about very openly. He seems like a righteous dude.
And so, yes, the Master, yes. Sasha, though?
He's definitely, props to Missy, but the hottest Master.
Listen, I said,
hottest Master.
when we were talking about who should be the next Doctor, I was like, Richard Ayoade, always, or Raza Jaffrey.
Right.
And I didn't know who Sasha was at the time.
Yeah.
But
what if Richard Ayoade plays the Master at some point?
Well, then, he would be great as the Master. He's, like, so neurotic in a way that, like, I couldn't, like, it would be a completely different Master.
Sure.
But it would be hilarious. Like, he would be good at it. So I just, listen, there's still a lot we don't know about how the Master got here in his journey and what iteration of him. So there could be a Mass-demption.
Nope.
That's not it.
No, it's not it. It's fine.
It's fine.
It's fine. A lovely thing in part 1 was that this episode was dedicated to the quote-unquote masterful Terrence Dix, who died earlier or sometime last year. But it's cool just also because he was was the script editor for the Master's first story whenever that aired. So it was sort of like a nice little loop and dedication. So the gang, our fam is back. Yaz is back.
Yaz is back.
We see little snippets of all of them, so we didn't really get too much new things about each character. Just sort of like a recap of who they are, so that people just tuning in or who forgot who they are, or the people who don't like them but still watch the show anyway because they're stupid. Get like a
constants.
Get a recap of who these guys are. So Yaz, is with her family. Her sister has a crush on Ryan, and Ryan, I think,
is interested,
and that is interesting because it seemed like they were early last season, not really towards the end of it, but early last season, there was just like, ooh, Ryan and Yaz, is that a thing? And then, obviously, the fandom has gone a whole different direction with Yaz, so they may be, course-correcting that into a, sibling relationship, especially by, having Ryan be interested in her sister.
I also feel like they were setting seeds for, and I don't know how I feel about this, again, because of the Star Wars thing about, like, letting fandom inform too much of where you're going. And maybe they were going that way anyway.
Right. It's hard to tell.
But they did seem to be stronger seeds to Yaz being queer. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I felt like they were laying it on a little bit more. Like,
yeah. For sure. Just like the way that she doesn't talk about certain things. I don't know, just her, like, and her hesitance to talk with her family, the way that she talks to them felt very like, but I also was just reading into it because I'm like, this is something that they're going to do, right? It's probably.
Yeah. And also because I feel like O was like,
yes,
flirting, and she was just like, huh?
Very like blinders on about it.
But again, when he was just O, and we didn't know who he was, he had that face, and he is very smart. So I feel
she's not blind,
right? And I feel like,
and she could be bi.
Right, she could be, but she felt very uninterested in a way that I was like, I mean, you would have the conversation. I am not like, I may talk like a good game, like I'm boy crazy or whatever. I'm not. And I'm usually like, if someone like approaches me, I'm like, yikes, no, thank you.
Same,
like,
absolutely. Like, please
but
don't
if
do this.
Sasha approached me, I mean, I would
also be like, yikes, please don't talk to me, but for the opposite reason.
I feel like I would
like, I can't do this right now, I have to go.
I mean, that's true. I might run away, but I would think I would be thinking about it afterwards. I'd
yeah,
like,
you'd still be like looking in the corner from the opposite side of the room.
I'd be like texting Connie, like, Connie, did you?
Am I tripping? I peeped, cuz I peeped.
Well, should I? I mean, I don't want
to.
That sounds awful.
I would hype you up. I would absolutely hype you up. Anyway, we should move on.
This is what this year of Tarbus is going to be like. And I'm sorry.
Bayana has gone, and the master has arrived, and it's just going to be off the rails.
It's a problem. I feel like I've said this numerous times in the past. It's 2 episodes in, and I'm like, this is going to be an ongoing problem.
It's fine. The
fine.
fans will be problematic with this. They will be more problematic than us, I'm sure.
And
we may have to rein some of you in. I already know. It's fine.
Keep it PG.
Marquita's trying to be wholesome, so we'll see we'll see what happens. Everyone's trying to be wholesome, so we'll see. Anyway, so Yaz and her family are thriving out here. She's still in her police probationary
period. She's but she's also, it's also interesting because we get to see, as we're re-meeting them, we get to see they've been traveling now for a bit, and we get to see the lies or the excuses that they've set up to
which I'm like,
explain, which is weird for Yaz because I'm like, your mom met her.
Right. But also I'm just like, so are we ditching the idea that the doctor tries to get them back on time?
On time, yeah.
It's just like, you know what? I can't guarantee anything, so just tell them a lie. I can't guarantee I'll get you back
Maybe it's
the next
also
day.
because there's 3 of them, and that's just a lot of coordinating.
Yeah.
It's like, that's too much logistical.
Yeah, just like say you're going on an extended trip.
But it's still it's a time machine. I mean, you drop one off and then you go back, you drop the other one off. I don't know.
She drops them off at the same place.
Right. She's a woman now, so she's like, let's think rationally.
Right.
I'm not Superman. Yeah, so like Yaz's travel excuse is that she's getting, what did they call it?
A tap on the shoulder?
Well, no, her boss thinks the tap on the shoulder, they called it like, receivements or something. I forget what they called it.
Yeah, I don't remember either, but yeah.
But so that makes like her boss think that she's getting tapped on the shoulder to do undercover work. Mm-hmm. Her mom is asking about it, like how many excuses or whatever can you get? It's like her mom says this is the third one, and then her boss says this is the fourth one.
Right, she's like keeping some from her mom.
Yeah.
And that's probably like the sixth one in reality.
But so that's like Yaz's, she's like, it's okay, it's,
it's fine.
It's fine.
Yaz,
I'll be back before you know it, type of deal.
Yaz also kind of goes through the most with the big bad of the episode. She at one point gets like sucked up into the unknown. And it was really traumatic, very clearly traumatic for her, which is interesting because obviously the doctor takes it better, and then the master's like super mad about it later, and Ada Lovelace is like in and out of this like thing, like this void world, but it really shook Yaz in a way that like she's like don't want to talk about it, she's crying, she's reticent with Ryan about it, and by the end of the episode it's sort of like Yaz survived because she and the doctor and I guess any of the other companions would have also survived because they confused the Kasavin because of their time traveling. Artron energy was brought up again.
Artron energy.
But I'm curious. It just seems like she went through a lot more than we saw. So I'm curious what it is that she experienced or went through, because it seems like it had to have been more than what she said.
Yeah, and she seemed much more shaken by it than even obviously the doctor is the doctor and like has seen a lot of stuff, and like the master seemed a little shaken, but he was in a whole different situation when he got sucked up in there. And Ada's been there a few times, so we don't know what her first time was. Right. But it seemed to have like really affected Yaz. And she tells Ryan, and I think also a thing that I want to mention is like, we don't, obviously Ryan Yaz shipping is not probably going to happen, but the tugboat is alive and well.
I do enjoy the way that they're developing their relationship, whichever way it's going to go. It's very nice. Like, she got sucked up and she came back and he was just like, I'm not gonna let anything happen to you. I was just like, aw.
Yeah. And he was like apologizing because they were together when she got sucked up, and he felt
he got out, and
like not responsible, but he felt like he like left her and he shouldn't have. And but I mean, he really like, Ryan, what were you
the only other
do?
Option was to be sucked up with her.
Yeah. Like
he left, and I was just like, dang, you just gonna leave her? But then I was like, yeah, what else you gonna do?
Also, like, you
gotta go get the doctor.
Yeah, and like she literally disappeared. Yeah. Like into the like the only where he could have gone was into the alien as well. So it's like, I don't know.
He did what he was supposed to do.
It's not like it was like, she like she was on a ship, I don't know why I keep bringing up other properties, but Infinity War, where like Doctor Strange is on a spaceship and you're like, I'll get on the spaceship and I'll figure something else out. I was like, no, you're going in the alien, like, or you're not. I just feel like not was the only.
Not was the only option.
It was the only option.
So yeah, I'm interested in seeing how they develop that. I hope it's not something that they drop, because again, as we've been saying and everyone has said, like, last season was very much Ryan and Graham, and it's Yaz's turn, and so I feel like this is leading to her, some, increased emotional development and growth for her. So I'm excited to see what they bring to that.
For sure. And I think that, like, I saw, because, I only really pay attention when we get ready to record this, that she was the only character of the fam that was, like, added to the audio plays, dramas, and stuff. And she's in, like, so, like, I think that they are cognizant of, it says 3 season 11 tie-in novels were announced, all of which feature Yaz. And she's depicted on the cover of one of them. So I think that they, like, do have a deeper sense of who this character is, and they hopefully are going to show it more than they did season 11. So then we see Graham, reminded about Graham's cancer, And this is like a thing that like literally bothered me in that scene was the doctor is like the opening scene of meeting Graham. I don't think it's not the opening scene of the episode, but like Graham's first introductory scene. And the doctor is like, he's getting his checkup or whatever. And the doctor's talking to him, asking him if he's like, oh, he's traveling and all this stuff. And he's like, he says, sorry to hear about your wife. We all miss her. And I'm like, because she was your coworker. Her name was Grace. You knew Grace before you knew Graham, probably, or at least knew her better because you worked with her. Right. And he just showed up to get a checkup every once in a while. You know what I mean? I was just like, say her name.
Yeah.
Which sounds, but like.
Yeah. They say it later, but yes.
It made me upset.
It doesn't make sense for that coworker to not have talked about her specifically, like by name.
By name. And it just brought up old grievances.
Well, I mean, really the whole thing for me was just like, I mean, he's here. I've accepted it. It's fine. He is occasionally interesting, but only occasionally.
He could be a lot worse.
He could be a lot worse. I survived Nardole. So like anything that doesn't hit that level really is just a win for the show. but like I feel like he was Graham was the butt of the joke a lot these 2 episodes, and like that's fine because he's, you know, whatever, I don't care. I'd rather him than Yaz or Ryan, but it did like just remind me that like he's only here because they needed some white dude to appeal to all these white viewers who are mad that everybody else is a woman or a person of color or both. Like, it just, I don't know, maybe it's just because of discourse and like every poll that the Doctor Who Twitters put up, Graham is always like in the lead, and in the BGC Slack we're always just like, can we go vote in this poll because Graham is winning somehow, or like he has more than Yaz and Ryan, and I don't know. It's just really frustrating because I think that I could have more sympathy and empathy for this character and like dislike him less if the fandom wasn't
what the fandom was.
What the fandom is, because like again, I get it. He's here. He's not going anywhere. It's cool. I'm not gonna see. This is the difference is that like I'm gonna make fun of him sometimes, but I'm mostly over it. So it's just like whatever. I'm not gonna like constantly talk about how annoying Graham is and how he doesn't need to be here. Okay, on this podcast I might, but I mean at least once per episode.
Not Nardole. Like, yeah, there are valid issues with Graham, but at least he is they give him something to do. Like he is there because he's a white dude, but at least he's not only there. Or he's not just being a white dude on camera. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They give him something to do, which Nardole is just being a white dude. Which is like, we have the Doctor. We don't need another one of you.
Right. And so, like, I think that's why it frustrates me that he is here, because of the way that fans, and I say that term loosely, like, dislike Ryan and Yaz so much. Like, you know, you'll see, just like, I know I shouldn't read the comments, but like the Doctor Who the Doctor Who Instagram posted something, and they were like super ableist, and they were like, you know, they were like describing each of the new companions, and when they got the day that they did Ryan's, it was like, you know, ex warehouse worker, dyspraxia sufferer, and I was like, y'all. So I commented, and then a bunch of other people commented after me, and eventually they changed it without note or comment or whatever. It's fine.
Just that never happened.
Yeah, they just like pretended it didn't happen. But you know, I ended up seeing some of the comments about Ryan, and they're just, I don't know, it's just annoying.
It's very Rose Tycho of like, he's just not interesting. It's like, he's not interesting because you're willing him to not be interesting.
Right.
Like, and you're saying like, that as a justification, but like, he's clearly interesting.
Yeah.
He's on the freaking TARDIS. Like, he's a companion.
Like, someone's like, this person needs to be removed. And I'm just like, for what? I couldn't be less interested now. Last season, I hated lasted 3 episodes and switched off for good. Blah, 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 blah. Like, all the comments about the show are so frustrating when they're from that particular side of the fan base. And so that's why seeing Graham and like they're trying to, you know, make light of it or like make note of it. It's like, we get it. He's a kind of a buffoon and he doubts the doctor a lot.
He's the old dude. He's the Wilfred Mott.
And it's like part of his character or whatever. And it's not the worst. Like, again, it could be worse, but it just reminds me every time that they make fun of him, just like, you could also just not have him here.
Right.
And it's only to appease this particular subset of fans.
Who should just shut up.
Or
don't stop watching. If you really hated Ryan and Yaz so much, you know what you would do? Stop watching. Yeah. If they were so uninteresting.
They're just so uninteresting. You just, like, turned it off. Like, don't comment on
right
the stuff on social media. Like, just quit and go away.
Right.
So... Or, like, tell me what your actual problem is, because when I was mad about Doctor Who, I had, like, legitimate reasons. So,
right.
You know, it's fine. Whatever. We'll talk about our boy Ryan later.
Yes.
You know, we have a special segment for that. But this episode, it's interesting because... So last season was like singular episodes, new villains only, new characters. We'd starting fresh, and now this season, just these first 2 episodes, it's like we mentioned everything, everybody.
Yeah, everybody.
Like,
we
gonna mention Torchwood. I was looking online, and they were like, they haven't mentioned Torchwood since like season 2.
Really?
Or like somewhere in the RTD era, like right. They haven't mentioned Torchwood since Jack left. I think they've mentioned Jack before, but they kind of forget that Torchwood exists.
Yeah.
They mentioned Torchwood. They mentioned Unit. Missy also had called herself an upgrade. So that's where the Doctor got it from. Mm-hmm. Apparently, the best enemy line is a Third Doctor reference.
Oh.
Their little telepathic. Again, back to Star Wars. Who was it? Was it Amani? I think it was Amani. In the Slack was like, "This is Rey and Kylo," and I was like, "I hate you."
But they've done contact before. But it has been, I think Joy said that it has been the Doctor contacting previous iterations of the Doctor, and then I think she may have said that like one time like the Doctor contacted all of Gallifrey or like all of the Time Lords.
But that was classic.
Yeah, but it was a classic Who like reference because I was like, oh, new thing.
But then she said, "You're not the only one who can do a classic," and I was like, "See, I get it. I don't go here, but I get it." I was like pointing at the screen, like, "Hey." The 4 knocks was a good callback. I was just like, "Wait, is she doing 4? Yes, she is. She's doing 4." I was very sad because the Doctor pulls a Donna on Ada and Noor.
Yeah.
I was just like, "Oh, you had to bring that one back. You had to bring that one back. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
great."
But when they go crash homeboy Deanna Barton's party, she throws on 12's coat.
Is it his coat?
She didn't flip it enough, but it had the red lining.
It had the red lining.
It was a blue coat with a red lining with a trench coat, and she should have gave us a flourish.
You know, a little flip, just a little flip, just like a peek.
A huge flip. I would have flipped the fuck out of that coat, but.
You're right. The gold bow tie.
If it wasn't his coat, it was close enough to make me be like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got the bow ties.
The gold bow tie, man. Yaz's sparkly sequin jacket. Ryan in a suit.
That whole scene.
Really, they just blessed
Ryan
us.
In a suit,
and then
we had Yaz in a suit. We had 13 in a suit, and we had
Sasha
in that suit with that stubble, looking at giving Yaz eyes, and I was like, I am so here. Actually, I wasn't even here because if you would have asked me in the moment what was happening in the plot, I was like, I don't know. Sasha's wearing a suit though. I don't know what they're saying. I don't know why this matters. I know he's in a suit.
It was like, it's Casino Royale, I guess. It's Bond.
And my brain is just fanfic and headcanoning it up. I don't know what's going on.
Right, because he was normal at that time. He was just, how he gonna come back?
I was already thinking about their first date. 13 getting jealous. You know what I mean? A whole Yaz, Clara Ryan, or Danny Pink situation. I had it all going on in my head.
Oh, that's funny.
It was great.
So part of episode 2, I was just like, oh, so we in the present and we go into the past. That is, it happens. It's happened.
It happens.
But not that frequently. I was like, are they going to go to the future? But they go to like the 1800s and meet Ada Gordon Lovelace. And I was like, how has the show not done Ada Lovelace yet? Like,
I know.
It's just like, ugh, men. I was just like, and I know it's still a man doing the show, but I was just like, of course. Like, of course not. Like, she should have been a character, and she's been in some of either a book or the audios, like, her later self, like, after she's, like, done the computer stuff. But I was like, it took 12 seasons to get Ada Lovelace? She's, like... She's a famous white lady.
Like, historical figure that is, like, ripe for Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Like, just kind
computers.
of
Right. I do feel like she's just in general gotten an increase in, like, attention in media. Like, she was a character in, I want to say, Victoria. One of those, like, old-timey British
crown shows.
Royal period pieces.
Victoria is on Masterpiece, and I've seen the first season, so I haven't seen the rest of them, but I should. Also starring Clara.
Yes, I'm behind like a whole season. We'll see.
I'm behind like 4, but
but I believe she was a character on that. And then Noor Inayat Khan, who is a member of the Special Operations Executive and first female radio operator to be parachuted into a war zone. And I was like, okay. And she existed during World War II. And the Doctor takes Ada Lovelace by accident because Ada Lovelace hijacked a ride to World War II. And me neither. I haven't heard of her at all, which makes sense because she's brown, and just the whitewashing of history. So it's like, that's why I was like, Ada feels like she should have been done, but I'm glad they introduced Noor as well. Like...
Yeah, but also part of me was like, I really wish that we could have gotten standalone historicals with them, and maybe we will. I'm not, it's not to say they can't, like, go back and, like, do that, but then it's also going to be, then, like, they've already met the Doctor, so, Yeah, absolutely. Or maybe they haven't, because she does do a Donna and...
erases their memories
at the end of the episode, but... I was, like, really excited about Noor, especially. And I like, the one thing about Doctor Who that I do love, and I was glad to get, because I have, like, needed a reminder of why I love the show. Even with, like, all of the things about 13's run that I do genuinely enjoy, I've needed the, like, oh, no, you actually do really fuck with the show. But I was excited to have a, like, oh my god, I learned about someone new who I can then go on Wikipedia and actually find out more about.
Yeah, for sure.
It's always nice when that happens, I think.
Although I would like to say, enough with the Nazi imagery. I'm over it. Yeah. I'm done. I'm pretty done.
Also, though, that's just a British thing. Yeah. They're very obsessed with that time period. Like, they're very...
And I get it. It was pretty traumatic for the country. It was very traumatic
for them. It's very, like, it's the... I mean, I guess you could say, like, in America, we have a lot of Revolutionary War stuff and, like...
Also over that,
Founding Fathers. Yes, also over that as well. But, like, I think it is one of those, like, very foundational cultural things.
Very heightened time periods for them.
As a white person, like, your culture is war.
Yeah. But yeah, they were just like, and I get it. I was like, okay, the spotlights on the swastika once, cool. But they just kept doing it, and then they were standing up there. The Doctor and the Master were standing up there, and I was just like, okay.
And you made this point, and I think that it's, like, worth, like, noting. It's, like, the colorblind casting of it's like,
oh my gosh.
Well, I guess, but it's not colorblind casting.
It's so complicated.
Because they were very intentional about casting the Master.
Yes.
It's very much I don't see color. It's that thing. It's like black, like, everyone is equal. Like, give me my like liberal cookies of, you know what I mean? Because it's not, because at the same, on both sides, on one hand, they would, like, I think Chris Chibnall would very much be like, we were very intentionally looking to not cast a cis white man for the Master again.
I agree.
But then in not casting a cis white man, they didn't change the way they write these episodes.
Right, and that's where I was really going with that comment that I made on Twitter and was talking about in the Slack, because it's like, it's so complicated for me just because it is, I'm so glad that they cast this South Asian man to play the Master, and it's really great, and it's cool.
South Asian. Sorry.
Especially this one. No, you're right. But, and it's not even like a thing that I know that, I don't know how they could change it, because that's a thing we've talked about before too. Like when we talk about Harry Potter issues and stuff like that, where they cast a person of color and then they're like, let's just keep the story the same. I think that they were careful in how they did this, because obviously the Master has like cloaked himself in the Nazi party and is like a soldier or like a general or whatever, and they pointed out, they're like, you're not exactly the prototype for like this for their Aryan race, and he's just like, oh, facial perception filter, whatever, cool, whatever, that's fine. That worked for me. That was okay. But the part that I cringed at, and again, I'm like, there's not really a thing that I know that they could have done otherwise. And it makes sense in character, but just, it's so cringy just because he is brown, just like that image of a white lady, like taking his filter off, just like sonicking his face or whatever, and then he's like surrounded by Nazis who are like gonna kill him. And obviously they don't somehow, which also I'm just like, really? He just like lives in a prison for 77 years, or like he escapes and then whatever. Yeah. Like they would have just killed him on the spot, but okay. And so that's just the one moment where I was just like, oh. And I did see some commentary on Twitter how awkward it is. They use different words, to have a brown guy be on a plane and like trying to blow it up with a bomb, like that, you know, that kind of thing. And so it's this weird position that I'm in, because I'm like, the one didn't bother me, like the plane thing didn't bother me, but then the image of the Nazis did, and maybe it's just because there's so many Nazis these days. But it's like, I'd rather they have this brown person, and like, what else? I don't know, I do think what you were saying, Robin, is that they were very intentional about casting him, and they do make all the appropriate references, like, this is what it is. Like, he's not white. But there are just certain little things that they overlooked or couldn't get themselves out of in time. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think, like, I was so wrapped up. So I watched part 1 twice, because I watched it right before part 2 aired. I was so wrapped up in him and the reveal that he was the Master that I didn't even get the plane reference until the second time, and I was like, yo. And like, they cannot obviously predict the future and also they're not American, so they don't know what we're currently,
and they filmed it like 10 months ago, like several months ago,
the current shit that we are in this moment. But they can, and they do have Brexit happening and all of the shit that like South Asian and brown people go through in Britain. It's similar, I think. They don't have the 9/11 of it all, but they do, because they were also very highly affected, because Britain was like one of our only allies to go to Iraq. You know what I mean? Like, so that 9/11 does play a role in their cultural stuff, and it's just so easily avoidable. Like, Barton's thing didn't need to be planes, it could have been boats, because also, like, my thing too was like, what black dude? And I want to also give them the moment of, in part 1, there's Yaz, Ryan, and Barton, like, Yaz and Ryan are interviewing Barton, and there are 3 people of color in the scene, and they're, like, Barton talks about being the only person of color in, like, the school that he grew up in, and, like, you know, and having mentors and all that stuff, but, like, doesn't really go into it. Like, it's not a scene focused on, like, the oppression of, you know, or the crap that they have to deal with. Like, they acknowledge it in that one line, but it's not the sole focus of that scene.
It's like they're actually people. And like it's just like a way that he would talk at other people of color. And I was thinking about it like he wouldn't have said that if the doctor were in the room, in my opinion.
That's true. Yeah. And I think that, like, I give them, so it's like, yeah, we can give you cookies for that. But, or I don't know. Should we give you cookies for just doing the thing?
I don't want to. Let's just say no.
No. We can acknowledge that they did that thing. That other people would want cookies for, but you shouldn't get cookies for.
Yeah.
But I do think that, like, so we can have, like, both of those things, right? Like, you can do something like that, you can write that scene and still have the blinders of, like, writing the scene with the master. And it's like, comes down to having people in the room.
Yeah.
And having, like, again, because I'm like, rich black guy, I don't know. I just feel like
I was like, would he have become the most powerful person in Silicon Valley? Would he?
That first off. But
like, okay, Silicon Valley is so racist, guys. It's fictional world. It's a fictional world.
It's a fictional world. But also, like, do you know how much, like, shit you have to go through to be a pilot? Like, how many, like, I'm just thinking about, like, driving while black is such a, like, shitty thing.
Yeah.
And, like, do you know all the agencies that you have to deal with to be a pilot and have all these planes? And I feel like his, like, hobby would have been something else.
Fair.
He would have collected something else. Like, boats? I don't know. I still think boats would be too much, too. I'm just like...
Yeah.
The free travel transit of a person of color with means.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't buy it.
Yeah,
so, like, also the fact that, like, the
lines.
master is, like, flying a Barton plane and blowing it up. It's just, like... And then the guy... And then in part two, I found this to be kind of true. The guy working the runway feels the need to be like, we've talked about this. You could at least give us a heads up. I'm like, bitch, you make you make $22 an hour. You're not talking to Bill Gates this way.
He's also still your boss. Like, right. He's like, he still owns the place.
You just, like, storm off. Like, you're not talking.
Yeah.
Like, so I just feel like it.
There have been advancements, and there are places that they could...
Blind spots.
Be better at. And it's hard because I also don't want to be like, well, you can't ever cast a person of color as a villain because then everything that they do looks racist. Like, I don't want that to... Because I can already see people, like, making that, like, counter argument, like, well, devil's advocate or whatever.
Yeah.
And I do think people of color should absolutely be able to play the villain and, like, do bad things and face consequences. And so I think that's where it's very complicated for me and where the line rests.
And I think that, like, Sasha as the master, like, in part two, does a lot of really interesting villainous things that do not have that. It's also just about, like, what the imagery that you're evoking at that moment supersedes, like, oh, he's a villain. And,
he just, like, takes the tiny compressor thing and, like, makes people tiny and I guess kills them, and that's awful and bad, but it doesn't have, like, real world, like, triggering imagery. Yeah, you're right.
And so it's just like, he could have, you know, had a miniature, like, the mini shrink ray gun and shrunk the plane and put it in his... I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, he could have done something else.
There might have been something.
But yeah, I think that those... We're getting there. Are we getting there? I hope we're getting there.
We might be getting... I don't know. Because I was going to talk about this later, but it kind of goes with all this stuff right now. In that... So, Barton kills his mom?
Yeah.
And I'm just like... So, again, he's a bad guy, a villainous dude who should be able to be villainous. But, to your point... There are just certain things that don't look good, but also, like, the scene wasn't really necessary in my opinion. Like, he hasn't mentioned his mother at all this whole time. Like, he had a whole conversation with Ryan and Yaz. Maybe something got cut.
So he alludes to his mom in that conversation with Yaz, but not in a way in which he can never gain her approval, and she's very tough. You know what I mean? Like, it was more like, you know, my mom can't believe I'm here. You know, like, you would have thought that she would have been a supportive and proud mom who maybe sacrificed to get him to where he needed to go, because he does make that point about like being the only one in these schools. So I'm thinking like he's able to go to a privileged school, or he's able to, you know what I mean, like do these things and be
and like have the technology.
Yeah. To then turn it around, and then all of a sudden he's like, you know, all I wanted was for you to say good job, like, and to be, I don't know, like, have mommy issues in that way was just...
It came out of nowhere.
It was out of nowhere, and like, yeah, he's like entitled to have mommy issues. People are entitled to their mommy issues. It's cool, whatever. But like, it's just like, it's not. It's less about Barton's relationship with her as opposed to like the last time we saw a black woman of that age.
Yep,
they were killed unnecessarily, and then this time they're killed unnecessarily, and like. They're always these like strong, like tough steel women, and like, I'm sorry, but if my son has me tied up to a chair and like is trying to, I'm scared and I'm crying and I'm vulnerable.
Yeah,
I'm not like sitting there with like, you know, nerves of steel as like,
right. I'm like confused at the very least. She was not even confused.
Right. Like, why am I in this like airline hangar tied to this
chair? Like, what are you doing? Like, she would yell at him because I'm curious as to what. It's just weird. Like, Chris Chibnall wrote this episode, so it's just like, you know, he's a white dude, and I couldn't tell if there was like a immigrant story there, in the way that like, you know, like Caribbean or whatever, or of African, like direct African descent, like immigrated to, like I couldn't tell if that's what it was, but it just, that kind of thing also informs characters and like how they would relate to each other. And like, I think that it could have been fine if they'd introduced any of that earlier when they could have, like, in the proper way. And then, yeah, like, this is the second black woman to be killed this way, and really the third, because Bill was right before that.
Right?
And so
it's
just a lot of layers stacked on top of each other. And I also think the scene was literally unnecessary. Like, we didn't need to see him do this. And she wasn't like the power bank
villain,
right?
After doing this,
and she didn't like provide them with this necessary like piece of information. Like, he just sacrificed her. It's not like she was the key or the final. And he like says she's the first, but it doesn't provide them any power or like give him any like extra incentive or like extra power over them or with them. He just has her killed. And I was just like, but why? Like, they literally introduce a whole new character in like the second half of this two-parter, and then they kill her off for no reason.
Yeah.
They could have just cut that scene entirely, because it really just made me annoyed.
and I think it's, you know,
in otherwise a great episode. Great set of episodes.
Otherwise a great episode. Same with the Fall from Earth, or what the Grace episode. It's like an otherwise great episode until they do the thing. Or until the countdown of they're gonna do the thing, because like everything from that moment on, when you realize what's gonna happen to Grace, you're just pissed.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is. Doctor Who is this very weird show where you want to give each new showrunner this like blank slate, but you can't, right? Like, Chibnall didn't write what happened to Bill, but he needs to be aware of what happened to Bill, what happened to like Martha, like, you know what I mean? Like, you have to be aware of like the history of what this show has done, especially because it has such a long history that when you're taking over,
especially when you're trying to like break. Like, I do think, like, unlike Moffat, like Chibnall, I do think is trying to break a lot of that stuff. Yes. But it's just it's honestly so much of it where it's like, I guess he can only do so much at a time, but also, like you're saying, like, he has to like reckon with you just have to look at it with different eyes. Like, you have to write it, do the thing, do your process, but then look at it again with this other perspective of like, if I were I don't know. I don't want it to be like, if Chibnall looks at it and is like, if I were a black woman, how would I feel about this? But like, I don't know.
Empathy, like you should.
Yeah, it's
though.
just
I think yes. I think yes, he should, and you should, and every human being should go through their life thinking, if I am this person, or if I am doing something that's going to affect another human being, how would I feel in their shoes?
Yeah, if I were that human being.
If I were that human being. That is just empathy.
Yeah.
And I think that Chibnall is trying to, like, have a more diverse, and not diverse, I don't like that word anymore, a more representative show. But if you're going to be representative, and if you're going to, like, have, like, put equity in the center of, like, what you're trying to do, then empathy very much needs to be in there. Because it is, you know, representation is not enough. I believe someone smart wrote something about that. But it is that, and it is also, I'm trying to tear down these blocks or mend these fences that this show over 50 years has, like, created.
Yeah.
So I need to also, like, in every patch that I'm making, I need to understand that wound that I'm patching up.
Yeah.
You know, it's more work.
Yeah.
Sorry, but that's the job. You know?
Sorry,
like,
not sorry. Like, that is the job. That is the job in telling stories that are, like, all stories should be able to be universal, but especially a show that has become a universal show. And I do like grapple with this a lot with not only Doctor Who, obviously, I watch a lot of British television. The first you've mentioned it.
Yeah. I grapple with this a lot in, like, all of the media that I watch, which is, like, how much of my sensibilities am I bringing to this that they just don't have, and I shouldn't expect them to have. And that's also an empathetic, like, empathy, too, of, like, this is, my culture is not your culture, and so I might have wounds. Too with this show.
Right. Like, how much of our perspective are they even hearing? Like, where would they get it from? That's the kind of thing I think about. It's just like, they see all these people commenting on the Instagram pages or the Twitter pages, but people like us aren't doing that. And so it's like, where are they getting our perspective?
But we are.
Yeah.
They just have to stay up 8 hours later. Like, you know, it's just an 8-hour delay. But, like, Doctor Who specifically is a global show now, and they know that, or they wouldn't. If they didn't, they wouldn't be at all the Comic-Cons. They wouldn't be.
They were in New York last night.
Right. They wouldn't be making these. Like, they were very intentionally like, oh, we are breaking into the American market, and I mean, I hate being American centric, but.
It's a big audience, man.
Pocketbook wise.
Yep, it's a big audience.
It's a big audience.
We have
and you want our coins.
Some money. Overall, there are people who have lots of money. I do not, but
but all of us together.
Yeah.
All of our little coins together.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's giving them a lot more than, you know, the British coins alone. And so I think, we can expect a little bit more. Or we should expect a little bit more thought. They shouldn't change, and if they went completely, if they completely Americanize the show, it's like, I think they kind of tried to do that with the movie, which I still have never finished. Like, it wouldn't be the same. They shouldn't change the core of the show, but you do have to kind of think about a global audience. It's a J.K. Rowling thing as well. It's like you now have a global audience, and you need to be aware of it.
Especially when they're also trying to break that thing of, like, the show only takes place in space, time, and Wales. So, like, very clearly, like, they were in the Ivory Coast, and, well, you know, some of the characters were, and San Francisco and all this stuff. So it's like they're also trying to, they were in Australia. They're trying to diversify literally, physically, the locations in which they are not only filming, because I believe they were filming a lot of that stuff in South Africa, but also, like, where the show takes place, because they also know that the show has a reputation and, like, gets, you know, crapped on a little bit for, like, only taking place in 3 places. And so when you do move the characters around like that, like, Barton was literally a person who clearly has some sort of immigration story, or, you know, capture story in his history from Africa to Britain, and then he moved away from his parents to go to Silicon Valley to go to San Francisco, and like there's that type of person has a relationship to their parent and to their mother that like just a little bit more, if you were going to include that scene, which I think it was unnecessary altogether, it could have been more nuanced in that, like, in how she reacted to him, in what he was saying to her, and his motivations in killing her, and how, like, unbothered she was about it.
Yeah, because if the issues that their relationship stem from him moving away, and that's like a kind of a first generation
That's
story,
exactly what I was thinking. Like, a lot of that felt like a very first generation conversation, but they didn't go there because Chibnall doesn't know. And then it's just funny that they have these two things, and like they have you know, this character say I'm the only one non-white person. It's like a rare reference in the show of like that non-white people exist. Not that they haven't had them, but like for someone to even talk about it is something the show hasn't really done before. That informs
their experience.
Right, and it's something the show hasn't really done before. And then to have this other scene where for me it's the opposite of like, oh, this was a bad scene that they did, and then for everyone to have been so mad at Lenny Henry for just saying that the show hasn't done that well with race in the past. It didn't do it that well with race in this episode. There are miles of improvement, but when you're improving on like 2, really, you know?
I mean, and that was, you know, I don't want to go all in because you can like see our like. I signed into We Black and Nerds and went all in when it was happening.
Move on to Ryan
on
Rants
Twitter.
after,
but like,
also.
Yeah, but I think that like that is also a very important thing that we will have to continue to tackle throughout the Chibnall era and beyond, which is people wanting acknowledgement that they're trying and not being enough, as opposed to like, where is your starting point? Like, well, we've improved. Yeah, but it took you 50 years to even try to begin to improve, and then we're in season 12, 11 years, like 50 years, improvement wasn't even on your radar.
Not at all.
At all.
And it's like, oh, we found black people. Let's start the new series with black people. It's just like, that's just at a base. That's just base.
We're not going to like, and we're not putting them in black. You know what I mean? Like
yeah. It's like we're starting at. They were starting at 0, and then Moffat showed up, and he was just like, "Let me just move this down to -5." So really, we're at -5. We weren't even at 0 anymore because RTD's like representation of black people and like people of color was slightly better, which again at 0. But then Moffat was just like, "I haven't heard of those. I haven't heard of black people." Oh wait, I have heard of black people, but I'm going to kill her off at the end of the season.
I'm going to shoot her in the chest.
Right, and so. Yeah, it's like there's improvement, but I think we're still at like 1, 0 or 1 still, because we've moved from where we were with Moffat.
Right, and we're getting a lot of pushback in terms of like, oh, it's 2020 and everyone wants to be woke, and it's like, but you're still not woke.
Right, like honestly, it's only like mid in terms of like actually talking about wokeness or like being politically correct or whatever. Like, all the stuff, like, ugh, I don't want to watch it. Like, again, some of the comments I've seen, it's just like, oh, it's too PC. And it's just like, oh, every character is a diverse character because it's diversity and not because they're talented or whatever. And it's just like, well, first of all, shut up. Second of all, like, they honestly aren't even going where they could with it. You know, like, they're miles behind where they could go. And honestly, the idea of 13 and Yaz being a thing at all, I'm just like, are they going to go there? Because that is one of the ways in which it would be like, oh, okay, now you're maybe trying. You know, because like that's something that I think is
in terms of this show, not that wild. How old is the doctor at this point?
Absolutely, like 1,200. 1,500 years old?
1,500-year-old person who has been a man and a woman and a whatever. A man or... Not the whatever. But who has been a man and a woman and has loved and lost and has had children. And like they mention it with Jack, like in the RTD era, like once you reach the certain age and you've been live in Europe, 15th century, whatever, like, or not 50, like 50th century, whatever, like binary, like attraction doesn't exist anymore. You travel in time and space and you've seen all these different like species, like things get
like there's not two of anything.
Things get gray. We're no longer binary. So in the context of and the premise of
this show has already established,
Yaz and 13 being a thing is not a thing.
You're right. It actually is pretty tame, especially after Jack.
Right.
Yeah, especially after Jack. You're right.
So
it's like everyone's so mad, and it's just like, this is all still 101. This is all still like the first day of your 101 class.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Ryan rants?
Ryan rants and raves.
And raves.
I mean, yeah. Again, like, the new, our, like, fam doesn't get too much, like, new information. But, Ryan plays basketball. He has friends. He has, like, a social life.
Confidence now.
Yeah, like, he misses the shot, and he's, like, mad at himself about it.
Yeah.
But
and they're like, you playing basketball, bro.
Like, you out here. You out here. It's great. I was just like, Bayana, you're going to want to tune into this episode.
So this is also kind of a little Bayana thing. I was like, ooh, Ryan got friends, and she was like, ooh, and they cute. Which they were.
You know.
But I also feel like the master reveal, and he's like, I said look for the spy master, or should I say the spy master? And Ryan was like, master. Like that look on his face. That's a Ryan rant and rave or whatever. That's what I was raving about it.
Yes. Oh my gosh, and him yelling in the car. It was in the trailer. And then I was just like, oh my gosh, Ryan. And then it happened in the episode. I was like, okay, it's still as gold as it was in context as it was out of context. Because he's just like wailing in the car as it's like being Kingsmaned throughout London. I was just like, Ryan, you dork. Him and Graham, like, with the spy tools.
Him geeking out over the spy tools, him being nervous about going undercover.
Oh my gosh, like, bro.
Which I don't want to spoil the thing because it's in the quotes, but is it in the quotes?
We can move it.
But him just being like...
I appreciated it because...
I look nothing like Hugh Jackman. My name is Logan, but I look nothing like Hugh Jackman. It's just like, Ryan, you precious, precious bean.
He's so precious. And then it was really funny because he had all these excuses for why he's not been around. Appendicitis, a hernia, a detached
retina.
Bro.
You would have an eye patch on. How long does it take for you to heal a detached? There would be visible changes, right? Your retina doesn't just detach and then you come back a month later like, what up?
But it reminded me, and you don't go here, but Delia does, and I was just like, Delia, this is Inuyasha, because which is also a show about time travel, Kagome would go, she's living in present-day Tokyo, and she has to go to the past to, like, put together the things she broke, and, always she would come back to school and she's like, yeah, I had the flu. It's never like I had the flu because she's been sick too often and she used that excuse already. So her grandfather's like, yeah, she had tuberculosis or something like really just extreme. And it's just like, that's not how this, no. But then it's just like, okay, but she's literally chronically ill with every illness ever. Just ever. Just literally all of them.
Do you have
just
lupus?
Like WebMD, Dr. House MD could not solve this problem because it's literally all of them. And that's where Ryan is right now. He's just like, yeah, I have every problem.
Which is hilarious because, like, dyspraxia seems like it would be rife with injuries. Fell down the stairs.
Right.
I broke a toe. I broke my foot. And it all comes back to dyspraxia. But he's like, nah, man, appendicitis, a hernia.
A detached retina. How? But like, you have to explain how. I really feel like you have to explain how. But yeah, the dyspraxia, like, they mention it a couple times, but it doesn't really play a role. And so I'm curious, like, invisible
I remain
illnesses.
annoyed by the dyspraxia storyline for Ryan.
Yeah, I'm trying to...
Talking about, like, shoehorning in representation.
Yeah.
That one definitely feels that way.
Because it's like, there are ways to display, like, physical, like, I don't know, it's like, I don't remember the word for it, but, it's just, there are people...
Physical disability?
Yeah, it's just like there are people who have invisible illnesses, and I think that's important to show, but they chose one that people have and affects them very really, but it doesn't, my understanding of it and, like, how people, like, kind of talk about it when they're like, yay, dyspraxia rep, it feels like it's not being used at all. And so I'm trying to figure out, like, how much should it exist, you know, like, how much should it be there? Because it's like, I don't want it to be like he has this problem and it bothers him all the time, but it also doesn't seem to affect anything. And so there has to be some sort of, like,
dyspraxia, but I feel like when you're running to chase a plane, tripping might be a thing.
Right.
Like,
because he can't ride a bike.
Show him getting on the plane. It's just like,
right, because he can't ride a bike.
The doctor gets on, Yaz gets on, and then, like, we're trying to get the O on. And it's like, well,
yeah,
if Ryan has this, like, that would be a good time.
Right, for it to even, or at least come up.
Come up, yeah.
And so that's the part that I find tricky, because I'm like, well, I'm sure that there are people with dyspraxia who it doesn't bother them, or, like, it wouldn't in that moment, or whatever. And I don't want to say, like, why did they choose a different invisible illness if that's the point, or, like, the version of representation you want to make, because was it Chibnall who's like, maybe his nephew has it?
Yeah.
Or something? So, like,
yeah.
I don't know, it's just, like,
for me, it would
an
be
interesting
that, like,
choice,
it doesn't
because
show
it
up all the time, but, like,
yeah.
so, like, I have a panic disorder.
Yeah.
And one of the things about panic, and I've, like, talked about this before, is, like, when you get panic attacks or anxiety attacks, you have a lot of anxiety about when the next attack is going to happen, whether or not it happens.
Right.
And I feel like that's a way that, like, I don't know, because I don't know people with dyspraxia, I don't know how they deal, but I feel like showing the anxiety of, I'm traveling with you, and there are all of these ways in which this, like,
thing that I have could affect
my safety, your safety. Like, am I going to be able, even going undercover, like, am I going to blow the cover somehow? Mm-hmm. Like, that anxiety and, like, having it better named.
Yeah.
I think, but I don't know, but I just feel like it's one of those things with Ryan that I'm like, I don't know, don't go on Instagram talking about dyspraxia sufferer, and then we just don't, we haven't really seen it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
because he doesn't suffer from any part, like, he doesn't really suffer from it except that he can't ride a bike. Yeah. According to what they've presented to us, anyway. So if you know more, listener, and feel like it's good rep or bad rep, let us know. What are ways in which the show could be doing this better? Because I certainly don't know, but I feel like it's not being used in the way that it could
one thing about
or should be, for how big a deal they're making of it, anyway.
Yeah. And I think one of the things about having rep like that is, like, Chibnall said that he wanted to bring awareness about this disease, but I don't feel like I don't know anything more about it except for the fact that they announced that he had it and he can't ride a bike.
Yeah.
And I feel like as someone who watches this show, I want to have a better, like, a more realistic understanding of what it is beyond, like, what they've said and, like, cursory Wikipedia search of what it is.
Especially because if they'd chosen some other disability, I think a lot of them would have somehow affected his time on the TARDIS and, like, literally running from monsters and stuff. Or at least, like, affected how he got to where he is now. Like, the fact that he plays Call of Duty, like, that's a game people play, but, like, you know, people, I don't know, like, is it a thing that he played because of the dyspraxia? Like, he can't play outside, so he played video games. Like, something small. Like, there are ways to include it where it's small and it's not like his whole life, but also where I feel like there's actually a purpose to them naming him having it. But again, if you, the listener, know any better, let us know, because obviously we want to be talking about it correctly.
All right, quotes from the TARDIS?
Yeah. I've read the files.
You want to do Lenny Henry?
You sure? So you want to do the first one?
My only thing that we didn't really talk about with Daniel Barton was that he has Stormtrooper aim, and I don't think that's like... But, like... True. It really bothered me that he was shooting and actually hitting the motorcycles or the bikes,
and
they were ricocheting off. But none of the bullets ricocheted and hit someone.
No, not at all. He definitely a Stormtrooper aim. It was the worst. I'm just like, why do you even have a gun? Also, I just remembered he like pointed the gun out the window, and his glee when he was shooting them. I was just like, what is wrong with you?
Because he's British in America, and he's like, who would have thought? I get to be shooting.
You're right. Oh,
they just let everyone have guns here?
That's what it is. Yeah. Whoa. I was like, there's something weird about this. And I was like, it's not that he has a gun, because they've had guns on the show before and the Doctor doesn't like guns. Like, that's a thing. But now that you've mentioned it, it's because it was a human, like a person who had a gun because he's in America. Yeah. That's what it was. I was like, there's something weird about this. There's something off about this. He pulled out the gun and I was just like, a gun? But it's because usually guns on this show...
He'd have been chucking knives at them.
Because usually on the show, people with guns are military. Yep. Or like unit or like law enforcement of some sort.
Yeah, you can't just be out here getting guns in anywhere else besides our trash country.
That's what it was. It's like, there's something weird here. Okay, quotes from the TARDIS. I've read the files. The Doctor is a man. I've had an upgrade. Hi.
Love it.
Our cute little hi. And as we mentioned before, she stole that line from Missy, which is fun because this episode, there are several moments in the episode where it's just like, oh, you were telling us this whole time. Like, Stephen Fry gets shot and he says, oh, on his deathbed. And I was just like, oh. It was O.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was O.
It was O.
It was O. Oh. Combination of an inspiring computer science teacher and being one of the only non-white faces at my school, I spent a lot of time in my bedroom with my computer, which, as I'm reading it, that's what she said. Get a girlfriend, Jeff.
But
when he said it, I was like, look at this. When I said it, it was like, ew. Spent a lot of time in your bedroom and on your computer. Okay.
Yikes.
Didn't need to know about it.
Also, that's like what would have been a real good time to mention his mama that he has a problem with and wants to kill. Apparently.
Right. Apparently. So these are quotes from Bayana. And that's just because, like, the quotes themselves, fine. I wouldn't have written them down. But her commentary next to me, I was like, good Lord. Okay, so you just really want to be on Tarbis without being on Tarbis. I get it. So Yaz says about Barton, only 93% human. What's the other 7%? Bayana answered, that bitch.
Oh, no.
Okay,
oh,
Lizzo.
wait. Oh, that's another Bayana one that I mentioned earlier because we didn't really talk about it. We just, quotes from the TARDIS is just fractured today. But so the thing with the Master, he raised Gallifrey down to the ground because the timeless child, whatever that means.
Right.
But Bayana wrote on the Slack, she was just like, Gallifrey falls some more.
No more, some more.
Some
bit more.
Just a little bit more.
A little bit more. Gallifrey. I have a Gallifrey Falls No More shirt that I'm now going to have to change to some more.
It's just like Gallifrey does fall. Sorry.
Yeah. So when we were in the Outback and then the alien lights come, Bayana goes, Yeehaw, aliens. And that's for you, Delia.
Facts.
And then these two belong together. Because they just work together.
I'd be a great spy. I'd just blend in. And Bayana said...
Because you're white.
Or is he just here for running commentary?
And then Bayana says... And because he's white.
Facts. Truth.
Facts.
Speaking truth to power.
Oh. All right, so thank you guys. We didn't do 2 hours, but we got close.
It's fine. We gotta cut out Luna.
So check us out at blackgirlscrate.org and follow us on social media at We Black and Nerds. I'm at Robin_Ravenclaw. That's Robin with a Y. Connie, our media superstar, is at Constar24. And use the hashtag Tarbis so we can, get your thoughts on the episode, your thoughts on the season, your thoughts on
Oh my.
Sasha. Woo.
You can also join our Slack, or you have a channel dedicated to conversations about Doctor Who. Currently, it is mostly about Sasha. That's fine. It's fine. You
Currently,
can also,
or for the rest of time.
Yeah, just like for the next at least 10 weeks. You can rate and review us on iTunes and where podcasts are found.
Tarbis is a part of Hard Knock Media. We've joined the Nerds of Color podcast network, including the podcast Hard Knock Life, Southern Fried Asian, DC TV Classics, Ask Spy Girls, Desi Geek Girls, We're Not All Ninjas, and That Moment. You can check out all of these podcasts at hardknockmedia.com.
Thank you all for listening. We'll be back next week for Orphan 55. Something about like a tranquility planet. And then things go wrong because it's Doctor Who.
I would never. Like, if the doctor says, do you want to, have some chill time?
It never goes
after
well.
Midnight?
Well, Donna was fine.
Donna was fine. Yeah,
So
I guess, Doctor, I would love to go have some chill time. You go over there, and I'm going to stay over here.
Exactly. All right. Until then.
See you next week. Bye.
Black girls have the box.